Thank you for joining us this evening for the 2021 Chinese Historical Society of New England's annual meeting. This year is also our 29th anniversary. Tonight, we have the honor of awarding 3 very special individuals for our Sojourner Awards. So please make sure you use the chat box below to express your well wishes throughout the show. But before that, let's take a look at the past year and receive our President's Report.
On October 23rd, CHSNE hosted the first anniversary lecture of the Tunney F. Lee Memorial Lecture Series, featuring Dr. Jack John Kuo-wei Chen, the Clement A. Price Professor of Public History and Humanities at Rutgers Newark, and Director of the Price Institute on Ethnicity, Cultures, and the Modern Experience. Entitled The Virulent Roots of American Violent Othering, Asians as Disposable Things and Other Stories of Dehumanization, Dr. Chen led a timely and compelling deep dive into how modern society is in a constant love-hate relationship with Asians in the United States. On June 19th, CHSNE was joined by community activist and researcher at the UMass Boston Institute for Asian American Studies, Michael Liu. In Forever Struggle, Activism, Identity, and Survival in Boston's Chinatown, 1880 to 2018, Michael charts Chinatown's journey and efforts for survival, from its emergence during a time of immigration and deep xenophobia, to the highway construction and urban renewal projects that threatened the neighborhood after World War II, to its more recent efforts to keep commercial developers at bay. On March 13th, CHSNE was proud to partner with the Chau Art Center to present Laundry Rock, Histories of Boston's Chinatown. As part of the Tunney F. Lee Memorial Lecture Series, artist Wen Hao Tian, artist and UMass Boston Institute for Asian American Studies Assistant Director Shauna Lowe, and Professor Eugenio Menegon of Boston University, hosted a discussion of Ms. Tian's art, a history of the Chinese laundry industry in America, and also a spirited reminiscence by our community guests Richard Chin, Raymond Chin, and Walter Wong, all of whom grew up in laundry families. On December 12, 2020, CHSNE held the second lecture in the Tunney F. Lee Memorial Lecture Series, Unsung Heroes, Recognizing and Honoring Chinese American World War II Veterans, a book talk and panel discussion. U.S. Army Major General Bill Chen was joined by Dan and Mon Luke, covering the story of how the book came to be and what work still had to be done to honor Chinese American World War II veterans. On April 19th, CHSNE hosted its first ever virtual Lunch and Learn, a Boston area painter, Mong Q. Lee, 1922 to 1960. Our director, Brianna Allen, sat down with board member and genealogist Alice Kane and Mong Q. Lee's daughters, Carol Mon Lee and Cynthia Lee, to discuss and discover through archival records the remarkable story of their father, a paper son, a laundryman, a World War II veteran, and a celebrated painter who passed at a young age.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for the Chinese Historical Society of New England's 2021 annual meeting. Like many of you, we really hoped to be hosting this in person this year to enjoy the opportunity to catch up with old friends and make new ones, to honor our Sojourner awardees live, and to enjoy banquet festivities. While we are not able to do that, we appreciate your support and engagement in our activities throughout the year, even as we continued our programming virtually due to the ongoing public health guidance. As always, it is with the generosity of you, our members, friends, collaborators, donors, and funders, near and far, that we are able to fulfill CHSNE's mission to document, preserve, and promote the history of Chinese immigration and the experience and contributions of the Chinese in New England. Tonight, we will share program highlights, give you a preview of our Chronicle and 2022 activities, and recognize this year's Sojourner awardees. Before that, I want to take a moment to honor two past Sojourner awardees who passed away this year. Uncle Bill, Billy Chin, 2012 awardee, and Dr. Robert Yuen, 2020 awardee. Uncle Bill was a longtime business and civic leader who opened and managed the China Pearl restaurant from 1960 to 1989. Uncle Bill gave discounts to community groups and hosted many political events at China Pearl, coupled with his longstanding relationship with former Senate President Billy Bulger, brought attention, influence, and resources to Chinatown that it had not received before. Our condolences to his wife, Josephine, and family, including his siblings, Frank Chin and Amy Goon, also past Sojourner awardees. Dr. Yuen was a pioneering neurosurgeon. Living in Newton, he saw a gap in services and programming for the growing suburban community, co-founding a Chinese family camp and language school, joining them later with the founding of the Greater Boston Chinese Cultural Association, GBCCA. We were also saddened to learn of the passing of Jean Chang, husband of CHSNE co-founder Caroline Chang, who herself had passed away a few years ago. His love and support gave Caroline the opportunity to contribute much to the Boston Chinatown community. Boston also made history, electing its first person of color, Asian, Chinese American female mayor, Michelle Wu, in November. She was also the first Chinese American elected to the Boston City Council in 2013, and the first person of color and Chinese American to become Boston City Council president in 2016. We are honored that Mayor Wu is joining us this evening to introduce Sojourner awardees Eva and Nick Chau. As with 2020, all of our various educational and cultural programming was virtual in 2021. While we did not get that in-person experience and interaction, it did facilitate participation from around the globe of hundreds of people who were able to join us who are interested in Chinese American history and culture. These included the Tunney F. Lee Memorial Lecture Series, the first ever virtual Lunch and Learn, numerous research appointments, small projects with teachers around Boston, and our internship program. CHSNE is working with Diane O'Donoghue of the Tisch College at Tufts University on an upcoming outdoor exhibit entitled Endurance Streets, Resilience and Response in Boston's Chinese Community. As part of our lecture series, we hosted 4 events on a variety of topics. William Chen, along with Dan and Mon Luke, spoke about their work on the book Unsung Heroes, celebrating Asian American Congressional Gold Medal recipients. Wen Hao Tian shared her artwork inspired by Asian American laundries in New England, joined by Shauna Lowe and 3 community members, Richard Chin, Raymond Chin, and Walter Wong, who had grown up in laundries. Michael Liu shared highlights from his book, Forever Struggle, Activism, Identity, and Survival in Boston's Chinatown, 1882 to 2018. Lastly, Jack Chen, founder of MoCA, on the virulent roots of American violent othering, Asians as disposable things, and other stories of dehumanization. CHSNE embarked on 2 new projects this year. The first was a Lunch and Learn series, the first focusing on Boston area painter Mong Q Lee. It was accompanied by an online exhibit created by Boston Asian Youth Essential Service interns, featuring pieces from his collection. Debuting in 2022, the second online exhibit created by these students will focus on a collection of Chinese herbal medicine from the Yep family. Lunch and Learn events will resume in person in 2022. We also began the process of putting the Mount Hope database entirely online. This will be a multi-year project as we gather the records, translations, and photographs to make the database complete. CHSNE also continued to acquire new pieces and collections. This includes the remainder of Tunney F. Lee's files, a photograph of a gentleman from the late 1800s, a Massachusetts restaurant oral history project, a generous donation from Klysler Yen concerning print media, and a small family collection scheduled to arrive this holiday season. In our upcoming chronicle, we will highlight genealogy in connection with a genealogy workshop in the works for February 2022, anti-Asian laws, a deep dive into the Chinatown directories, our Sojourner awardees, Nick and Ava Chau and Klysler Yen, and more. We would not have been able to accomplish so much of our programming without the support of our dedicated board members, student interns, and sponsors. Our diverse and generous financial supporters include Tufts Medical Center, the Margaret Y. Wong Family Fund, Lena and Yu Sing Jung, South Cove Community Health Center, Bunker Hill Community College, Paul and Mary Lee, Ava and Nick Chau, John and Stephanie Fan, and Amy Goon. Thank you to all of our board members, in particular York Lowe for guiding the Tunney F. Lee Memorial Lecture Series, Alice Kane for spearheading a CHSNE First Genealogy Workshop planned for 2022, and Nelson Chin for supporting CHSNE's day-to-day operations. Stay tuned for more exciting programming and activities in the coming year, our 30th anniversary. We are looking forward to resuming tours, including a new self-guided tour, a field trip, an outdoor exhibit, and 4 more lectures.
Hello again. I am very happy to announce a few upcoming items that I'm looking forward to. Next week, we have a student-run oral history project going live on our exhibit website. The student is William C2, a rising senior at Phillips Academy, Andover, and on campus, he is the founder and co-president of the Phillips Academy History Association. He is working on an oral history project around Chinatown to document the unheard voices of Chinese American immigrants. His oral history focuses on restaurants and will be available in both English and Chinese. We will also be updating our main website with a new exclusion timeline. We hope that this will be a valuable research tool to both students and other interested parties. Over the summer, we are working with Diane O'Donoghue on a grant from Tisch College. It is entitled Endurance Streets, Resilience and Response in Boston Chinese Community. Based heavily on the collection from Tunney Lee, we are collaborating on a cultural, archival, research, and exhibition project that both documents the past year within Boston's Chinese community and extends the narrative historically, bringing the struggles and the accomplishments of this neighborhood over the past century into view. This will be reminiscent of these words in 2016 and will be displayed on windows throughout Chinatown next summer into fall. Next year, we are looking forward to seeing everyone in person again, and we are planning a few events that will be announced soon. We are kicking off the year with a Tunney Lee lecture on Chinese educational mission students, and in February, we're holding our first genealogy workshop, aimed at those just beginning or who have already started but want a few more strategies. In the spring, we'll be holding another Tunney Lee lecture on North Adams Strike and how this event inspired a fiction book and play. And over the summer, we'll have the outdoors exhibit, the previously mentioned Endurance Street, which will be up for several months around Chinatown. And of course, it is our 30th anniversary next year, so keep your eyes on us for some smaller events throughout the year. The early Chinese immigrants pioneers were typically sojourners workers, looking for a piece of gold mountain to take back to China to help their families. Many faced conditions of racism, exclusion, and economic exploitation, even as they helped transform America by building railroads, establishing fisheries, harvesting crops, and producing in factories. Our place today in this society rests, in part, on their legacy. It is in memory of their unrecognized struggles and profound contributions that we offer the Sojourner Award. Tonight, Mr. Klysler Yen has recorded a statement in Cantonese. The full recording will be available soon on our YouTube page. His daughter has provided us with a translation for this event. Here to welcome our awardee, Klysler Yen, please welcome his daughter, Chris Yen, and her husband, Hubert Young.
Congratulations to my dad, Mr. Klysler Yen, Yen Wenlong Xin San, on this much-deserved Sojourners Award, an award for the importance of community, culture, history, presence, and for humanity. I'm sure many of our family and friends, community members, and just about anybody who has heard of Mr. Yen from Singtao newspaper, the Chinese Wushu Research Institute, and the Asian American Association knows of him to be someone who is passionate about bringing people together and connecting them to resources to help build their dreams and their families too. My dad's undeniable commitment to advocate for Chinese immigrants is because he wholeheartedly understands what it's like to come from hardship and the kind of hurdles one must face in order to find a sense of belonging. He was fatherless at the age of 10 years old, and he had to face every difficulty and decision-making on his own while looking after his younger brother. Failure was not an option for him because the kind of challenges he faced came down to survival. Every knowledge and skill set he also acquired on his own initiative rather than having any formal training or mentorship. And as a young man, he was already a strong believer in creating opportunities and also adopting an attitude of optimism, even in times of adversity. So he is truly the epitome of what it's like to take destiny in one's own hands. There is nobody that I know who is more resilient, resourceful, courageous, persistent, wise, generous, kind, and stubborn. My family and I am very proud of everything that he's achieved, and I am especially honored to be able to call him as my dad. Thank you to the Chinese Historical Society of New England and its supporters for recognizing the sojourners and for creating this special event.
Hello， 大家好，我係 Hubert Young 楊子成。我好高興同好驕傲得知道我外父殷雲龍先生得到紐英倫華人歷史學會頒贈俾佢今年度嘅遊子獎。我相信大家對殷先生都唔會覺得陌生㗎啦。佢喺 Boston 40幾年無私嘅貢獻真係無可厚非，數不勝數。由佢喺70年代創辦嘅中國武術研究所，到佢開辦《星島日報》Boston 分版，到最近領頭組織亞美聯誼會，不但止幫助到好多華人喺美國社會立足同融合，亦都提升咗華人喺美國社會嘅地位，令到華人受到肯定同尊重。阿爸，恭喜晒你收到呢個獎項！我知道你獎項咧對你嚟講係唔重要嘅，不過你咁多年嘅貢獻，呢個獎你係應得嘅，恭喜恭喜！
New England 華人歷史協會俾我本年度遊子獎，因為疫情關係，年會頒獎破天荒喺網路上舉行。並且通過網上視頻訪問我，問我要講些乜嘢。首先我好感恩美國社會俾我嘅自由發展機會同埋法治嘅環境，感恩朋友俾我嘅關懷，感恩喺各嘅社團共事佢嘅支持同埋幫助，亦感恩華人歷史協會俾我嘅榮譽。我同太太1975年帶着11歲嘅仔同埋1歲嘅女移民到美國 Boston， 只要個人事業。1976年創辦中國武術研究所，我係負責行政同埋出版，太太麥寶嬋負責教學。1980年應聘開辦《星島日報》Boston 分版，一直負責至到今日。業餘，我喺1992年創辦咗演藝沙龍，1994年共同創辦中華書法會，2010年係領頭創辦亞美聯誼會，負責 亞美藝術團同埋主編亞美報。2019年又聯合創辦大灣區愛樂聯盟，喺澳門註冊。2020年聯合創辦谷氏地震預報研究所。由於46年來，我主要從事係中文嘅新聞業，曾寫咗大量嘅文章及新聞發表喺《星島日報》，對波士頓地區華人社會有夠廣泛接觸，所以我認為我有資格以見證和感言呢個題目接受訪問。更重要嘅係，希望通過訪問，我試圖為華人社區存在一些個問題能夠有自己嘅發言，但係未知正確唔正確。第一，隨着電腦、網絡、電信智能化嘅發展，好多高科技嘅產品一波一波被更替咗。波士頓華人社會亦喺日新月異當中成長，但係歷史唔會更新，唔可以太對，只會留下一個軌跡。華人歷史協會應運而生，係記錄咗華人社會幾十年嘅風雲，記錄咗響美國華人參與美國社會嘅創造同埋不斷成長，佢哋有重大嘅貢獻。歷史見證俾我哋知道，華裔係建設美國社會一份子，應以各嘅族裔平等地受到肯定同埋尊重。第二，46年來，我目睹華人社會新移民日增，職業同較為單一集中嘅餐飲業走向多元化，人口結構亦以廣東人為主，亦慢慢改變。流行嘅中文語言同台山話、廣東話到現在嘅普通話混合體。第三，華人社會最大嘅變化莫過於幾個社團，現在我冇點名。40多年前，呢幾個社團幾乎一無所有，從非船民同土庫起步，到今日成為物業嘅大業主。
Thank you to the New England Chinese Historical Society for giving me the Sojourner Award this year. I am very grateful for the freedom, opportunities, and the available legal environment given to me by the American Society, for the care given to me by friends, for the support and help of those working in various organizations, and for the honor given to me by the Chinese Historical Society. My wife and I immigrated to Boston in 1975 with our 11-year-old son and 1-year-old daughter. I founded the Chinese Wushu Research Institute the same year, where I was responsible for administration and publishing, and my wife, Bosun Mark, was responsible for teaching there. I was hired to start the Singtao Daily Chinese newspaper, Boston branch, in 1980, founded the Performing Artists Salon in 1992, co-founded the Chinese Calligraphy Association in 1994, led the establishment of Asian American Friendship Association and Asian American Art Troupe in 2010, published the Asian American newspaper, and co-founded the Greater Bay Area Philharmonic Alliance of Macau in 2019, and the GU Institute of Earthquake Prediction in 2020. During my 46 years of Chinese journalism in America, I have written numerous editorial articles published in the Singtao Daily and have extensive involvement with the Chinese community in Boston. So please allow me to shed some light on current community concerns that I think are important. With the development of computers, networks, telecommunications, and intelligence, many high-tech products have been replaced one after another. The Chinese society in Boston is also growing with each passing day. But history cannot be updated or replaced, can only leave behind tracks. For decades, the Chinese Historical Society has recorded stories of Chinese Americans and their participation in the creation and growth within American society. Historical testimony tells us that the Chinese Americans have made significant contributions. Chinese Americans are part of the building blocks of American society and should be recognized and respected on an equal basis as all ethnic groups. I have witnessed an increasing number of new Chinese immigrants. Their occupations moved from mainly the restaurant and catering industries to many other various industries now. The demographic structure that was once mainly characterized by Cantonese is slowly changing to include all Chinese from different parts of China. The trending Chinese language is now a hybrid of the Toisan dialect, Cantonese, and Mandarin. In the past, there were only a few low-income housing, such as the Taitung village, which was built with government support. The application process back then was efficient, and applicants didn't have to wait long to move in. But these days, the application process is taking much longer to approve applicants, even with the involvement of several larger real estate owners who once also came from nothing 40 years back. They have helped build many low-cost housing too, with the aid of public funding, but there is still more that can be done. There are more opportunities and available resources now to build more houses for the future, but I am concerned that the waiting period for these applicants may actually take even longer. Unfortunately, the construction of new low-cost housing can't keep up with the increasing number of new immigrants. But let's reflect on this for a moment. With the continuation of publicly funded low-cost housing by the government, can we actually meet the demand? Is the Chinese society's emphasis on building low-cost housing a good way to solve community problems? If one has a job and an income, and the United States is so big, then can't we call other places home too? There are also many unrecognized people and diverse organizations that need just as much support and equal opportunities, not just in housing, but offices, activity venues, etc. These folks are important components who help drive a healthy society. But some of these families waiting for housing and other support may not stand a chance or even get enough help. There is a Chinese saying, a place where there is no place to stand. Here's an example. The Chinese Historical Society, after existing for decades, only has a small office and a small group of staff. There isn't even enough space to store the Chinese historical data and artifacts. Another example, a nonprofit music and opera group with a history of more than 80 years only has a small space for their 20 or 30 so members for gathering and practice. And also the Asian American Friendship Association, with 11 years of service and growth, and recognized by the provincial and municipal governments, with the second Saturday of September each year recognized as the Asian American Festival. They have consistently been organizing activities with 20 to 30,000 attendees in large venue spaces, such as the Boston Common. However, they were only granted a tiny office space in the China Trade Building and later even rejected on this. How could this be? Why are they not receiving equal attention and only have small spaces to operate in when they are able to hold such significant functions for the community? And they frequently have to host mahjong games and rely on the entry fees to maintain rent and expenses. I believe the government needs to reevaluate its housing policy. For decades, resources seem to go towards larger proprietors who, while neglecting the disadvantaged nonprofit organizations and its people. This doesn't seem to be balanced or fair, do you think? How can we build a more harmonious society under such circumstances then? The concerns I share are merely based on my observations and conscience as a journalist for so many years. My opinion may not necessarily be correct, but I do care. And I do welcome your thoughts and to have further discussion on these topics, because my goal here, which I'm sure many of you also share, is to help improve our communities and create better and equal opportunities for everybody. Finally, I will give the following items to the Chinese Historical Society. I believe that the Historical Society's preservation is more meaningful than my own. Hundreds of articles published in Tsingtao Daily for several decades in 2 volumes, a box of photos and other news-related items. Also, more than 10 Wushu books and DVDs edited and published by the Chinese Wushu Research Institute, and several special editions of the Asian American newspaper published by the Asian American Friendship Association for the Asian American Festival. There is a famous Chinese saying, "Life is a passerby for 100 generations." I am honored to be a part of history making together with the Chinese Historical Society. I wish the chairman of the society a long and healthy life and continue to be the witness and recorder of our histories. Thank you.
Here to announce our awardees, Nick and Eva Chau, we have invited newly elected Mayor Michelle Wu.
Hi everyone, I'm Mayor Michelle Wu. As a daughter of immigrants from Taiwan, I'm proud of our city's historic and thriving Chinatown as a cultural hub and a home for the entire region. I'm especially grateful to the Chinese Historical Society of New England for inviting me to join you all today and congratulate 2 beloved community leaders and friends, Nick and Eva Chau. First, thank you to everyone for supporting the critical mission of the Chinese Historical Society of New England in keeping our community history alive and growing. And congratulations to Nick and Eva for receiving today's important Sojourner Award. This annual award celebrates those who continue building on the rich legacy of Chinese Americans. As successful entrepreneurs, Nick and Eva have contributed their time, talents, and treasures to the Chinese community through philanthropic contributions to the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, the Boston Foundation's Asian Community Fund, and so many other initiatives. And they've been a source of support and inspiration for me personally over many years. I'm especially thankful for the paths that you both have paved and the doors that you've opened. As the first Asian American and first woman elected mayor of Boston, it is an honor to present this award on behalf of the Chinese Historical Society of New England. I look forward to continuing to work with everyone to celebrate and invest in our shared culture and community for Boston to be a city for everyone.
Good evening. I want to thank the Chinese Historical Society of New England for this honor of the Sojourners Award. We'd like to also congratulate the other awardee, Mr. Klysler Yan. We're humbled by this award, knowing some of the amazing people who also received this award in the past, like Auntie Helen and Paul Lee. My path to the United States from China is kind of gratuitous. I was born in Hoi Ping, immigrated to Hong Kong, then went to Canada as a paper son with the last name of Lee to be raised by my grandparents. My grandfather was Lee also, so everyone thought during those times that he was my father, being only 36 years old when I was born. Anyways, I grew up in a small town in Guelph, went through the regular discrimination of being taunted by fellow classmates, and the only other Asian in my 10 years of living in there was a Japanese fellow by the name of Kent, who was my best friend, and everybody thought we were brothers because we were always together.
My path to the US is pretty straightforward. I came to Boston in 1971 as a foreign student. My maternal grandfather came as a paper son to work on his potato farms in Sacramento in the early 1910s. He was able to send US currency back to China to support his family. He stopped working and moved back to the village in 1945. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1947 from typhoid fever. My mother and her family had a fairly good lifestyle. She went to boarding school because of his hard-earned money. I think that was where my parents met each other. So in 1971, through the sponsorship of my uncle, that is my mother's brother, my mother and my 4 siblings were able to immigrate to San Francisco with a permanent residency status. Then I got my PR through my mother since I was still under 21 at that time.
In the mid-1960s, when they had the amnesty program where people can declare who they really were without being penalized, I changed back to my surname of Chau and moved to Miami to join the rest of my family. My father, since the late 30s, have been trying to get into the United States. He eventually ended up on Angel Island, and before being released, he went to, he settled in Miami along with a lot of other paper family name under Chin. And he never changed his name back to Chau because all the paperwork was already under Chin. So all my siblings have a last name of Chin, and I'm the only Chau in the family.
My paternal grandfather has established a pharmaceutical business in the late 1930s. My father, being the eldest son, has to assist my grandfather in the operation. My father became the managerial director of the company after my grandfather retired. His 3 male siblings all went into the medical field. So in those days, the highest paid personnel in a dispensary in Hong Kong was the chemist, the equivalent of a pharmacist in the States. He had a relatively easy job. The job description prompted me to study pharmacy. I never had any ambition to open any business. I met Nick in 1973 when he was working in advertising. I graduated in 1976 when there was a recession. It was hard to find a job in the greater Boston area, and Nick also got laid off. It was our dear friend, Dr. Stephen Tang, who was one of the founders of the South Cove Community Health Center, gave us an idea to open a pharmacy to serve the South Cove patients and also the Chinese community. So after that, we got married. I completely forgot about my goal. My dream job to work leisurely as a chemist in Hong Kong went also out the door. After that, I worked very hard continuously for the next 35 years in Chinatown.
Yeah, so I got most of my traits from my grandfather. He was a self-taught man. As a matter of fact, he said he wasted 4 years getting a 4th grade education. So my interest in real estate actually started with him also. He had told 2 of his Caucasian friends who had an appliance store business to get their real estate license. They did, and eventually became the 2 biggest developers in Guelph, where I grew up. But anyways, in terms of the housing market here and the real estate here, my mentors were Caroline Chang, Neil Chin, and Jackie Kay, who recruited me to be on the Asian Community Development Corporation Board, on which I'm still serving since 1997. I learned a lot about housing, especially affordable housing, and how it affected the community from their hard work.
My grandfather was a self-made man. He was very successful in investments and in his business. He was generous and philanthropic. He took care of not just the immediate family, but also various relatives too. He contributed to a wide range of charities and his family association. Since I needed in the pharmacy all the time, I was not personally able to participate in various organizations. Nick always became the face for Taitung Pharmacy and the Taitung Realty. I truly believe that is God's guidance and God's plan that guides us in our success, that enable us to do what we do.
We're so invested in the Chinatown community because it's them who have supported us all these 45 years, and we feel obligated to reciprocate and help the community in any way we can. I belong to I still belong to the Asian Community Development Corporation Board, the Chinatown Neighborhood Center, and also the Bunker Hill Community College Foundation Board. I've served on these boards for many years, and then it's a way of being active, engaged, and learning about Chinatown as we continue to learn about Chinatown.
Before we opened the pharmacy, the residents in Chinatown patronized the Carl Martin Pharmacy, located now on Harrison Avenue, which is next to the St. James Church, for their prescription needs. The Chinese always rely on the herbal medicine and remedies and practices. I am sure they will continue to do so, along with the adherence to Western medicine. So during the pandemic, we stay open to serve our patients closely. We started to increase our home delivery service so that the patient do not have to go out to possibly expose themselves to the COVID. As the vaccine became available to us due to the generosity of Eugene Welsh, who is the executive director of the South Coast Community Health Center, our pharmacy conducted vaccination clinic at various sites, like the MT storefront at Taitung Village, Golden Age Center, Chongxi House, the Pao Art Center, Quincy Tower, and some restaurants, and even the patient's home. So, our staff could vaccinate without having the patient to travel far. Now we have a COVID clinic in the pharmacy every Tuesday in order to maximize the usage of vaccine doses. So right now our pharmacy is gearing up to administer the booster shots now.
We're so honored by CHSNE because I've been an admirer and supporter of CHSNE for a number of years. I was introduced to CHSNE by Sherry, Dong, Stephanie Font, and our mentor and good friend, Tunny Lee. We're so happy that CHSNE has continued Tunny's legacy by having the Tunny Lee lecture series. And we are so involved with that also. And CHSNE historically has always been upfront about preserving the Chinatown heritage and documentation. And because Eva is a great history buff, that's how she met York Lowe.
Well, history was not my cup of tea when I was growing up, like when I was a teenager in high school. I got too interested in it more and more as I grew older. I believe that one must know the past in order to understand the present. History is one of my favorite interests now. I love to learn, history of different cultures and different civilizations, even down to the local level. The history of different Chinatown fascinates me. I am proud to be one of the members of my Chinese community. York Lowe and I know each other through a very strange circumstances. That is a story unto itself. He authored an article in the industrial history of Hong Kong about my grandfather's legacy in his pharmaceutical business. Without knowing me or my background at the time, it was a sheer coincidence that we connected and we continue to share things in common.
So CHSNE is a big connector for the whole community. And that's one that the qualities that I see that can benefit the community. Thank you very much.
Our sponsors for the evening include Tufts Medical Center, the Margaret Y. Wong Family Fund, South Cove Community Health Center, Bunker Hill Community College, Paul and Mary Lee, John and Stephanie Fan, and Amy Goon. I want to make sure I take another moment to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to our donors, sponsors, and attendees tonight. You make our mission possible and ensure that Boston and beyond can hear the stories of New England. Thank you to my board, who has helped throughout the year to ensure that our mission is being seen through. And I want to say thank you to all of our researchers, interns, volunteers, and visitors, whose interest ranges are incredibly vast and always keep me on my toes.
The Chinese Historical Society of New England wishes to recognize and remember some of the men and women of our community who have passed during the last year. We send our condolences to the friends, families, and colleagues of these individuals and honor their memory.
congratulations once more to our sojourners, Klysler Yen and Nick and Eva Chau. And thank you again for attending tonight. Please have a wonderful evening wherever you are in the world, and good night.